Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give another minute or two for people to connect. So bear with us for a second. Thank you. Okay, so hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the first day of the Israel eCommerce Virtual Summit, presented by Nemogu, the only company preventing customer journey hijacking. This is the first event of its kind featuring innovative Israeli startups who are reshaping the e-commerce world. As a reminder, the summit will run over the next 4 days. Your registration entitles you to all of these exciting sessions, and if you're unable to attend the live event, our follow-up communication will provide you the link to the on-demand recordings. You can access all sessions with the link you received for this one. We're very excited today to have two industry experts from Deloitte who will kick off our summit with Israeli retail tech enabling multinational corporations innovation. Our speakers today are Rani Argov, co-leader of Deloitte Digital and Retail Sector Leader, and Ariel Cohen, Retail and E-commerce Domain Manager. Both of them command an impressive understanding of the crossroads between e-commerce and technology. Before we begin, let's quickly cover some housekeeping items. Although all phone lines have been muted, we do encourage you to ask questions. Please use the GoToWebinar question panel. The webinar will be recorded and you'll receive the link to the on-demand version in our follow-up email. Feel free to share this with your colleagues who were unable to attend the live broadcast today. So without further ado, Ariel and Rani, I'll hand the reins over to you.
All right, everybody. Thank you, and it's great to be here, and it's great to open this exciting week. I'm Rani Argov. I'm leader of Deloitte Digital in Israel, and I'm also head of the retail sector. So basically, my entire career has been around supporting retail clients in designing and executing the digital transformation, both for their offline businesses as well as for their online operation. And once again, happy to be here. We'll dive into our deck in a minute. Ariel.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Ariel Cohen, and I lead the retail and e-commerce domain at the Innovation Tech Terminal, now with the new name Deloitte Catalyst. Deloitte Catalyst, it's a joint venture between Deloitte US and Deloitte Israel that connects Deloitte's global clients to the Israeli innovation in several domains, and I lead the retail and e-commerce domain. Basically, our mission is, we have two missions. One is to work with the Israeli companies to help them to grow with our expertise, and the second mission is to help to walk hand by hand and walk closely with our global clients and help them and build a solution center for them. Let's switch. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah. So just quickly, I think we can definitely see that more than any other industry we have worked with, retailers are really seeking actual change in their business model, measurable, evidence-based, technology power, change in the way they operate. I think the stress that retailers and CPG companies feel and experience in their current old school incumbent way of creating business is becoming a challenge. And we're going to talk in the next 30 minutes or so about the axis between our incumbent global clients in the startup technologies, and why is it that we feel that that axis is a key moment in which the industry is changing. Our support of that connection between corporate clients and startup vendors is around all three aspects of that journey, so we can help the two effectively meet, understand each other's needs, and make sure that our corporate clients find the exact needs for their business challenges. We can help them test that and understand how the specific technology or bundles of technologies will impact their own business environment. And lastly, but probably most importantly, we can help them scale solutions. And in many of the cases, one of the biggest obstacles in the mind of a corporate retailer or a CPG company is while I have met a cool kick-ass technology, how quickly could it scale to impact my business? And that's part of what we try to bring to the table.
So we believe Israel has all of the ingredients to be successful. And as you can see at this slide, Israel has all types of technologies from AI, AR, robotics, analytics, IoT, and all of these technologies now pivoting and shifting into the retail sector. And we'll see more and more companies, and also at this summit. The amount of companies in Israel is almost 500 companies, which is growing exponentially in the past 3 years. And in terms of investment, you will see here $568 million just in 2018, which is more than a double than 2015. As you can see in the next slide, it's over two and a half than 2015. 12% of the global investment in the retail ecosystem. And what is interesting about the Israeli ecosystem is almost 1 out of 10 companies are retail that got investment in Israel is retail and e-commerce related company. So I think this is one of the signs that we see why the retail tech and e-commerce is growing exponentially. And the next pillar in it, skip slide please. And the next pillar and one of the evidence for how successful the retail tech in Israel, we'll see multinational companies and they're present in Israel. And we created this triangle to show what type of engagement they have at the Israeli ecosystem. So at the bottom, you will see scouting and open innovation and strategic alliances. Some of them has investment, M&A, and some of them created accelerator, labs, all type of commercialization program. And on the top, you will see R&D centers. So if you will dive a little bit about the names, so you will see at the bottom, you will see Visa and Panasonic. Some of them has like 2 people, 3 people on the ground that doing the ongoing scouting for them, and many others that keep coming to Israel to do scouting, open innovation, build strategic alliances with them, Toshiba and H&M and others. On the investment, you will see the big names, Walmart, Best Buy, Nike, and others, that all of them made a big investment in Israel. And accelerator and all type of program. We were part of JVP Play together with Tesco and PepsiCo. And you created a POC for Israeli companies, and The Bridge, the builders, created another commercialization program together with Coca-Cola and Walmart. And on the top, you will see companies like Nike and Alibaba that via their investment, they now have a permanent presence in Israel, and Google, Amazon, and eBay that already has a presence in Israel for many years. And what is very interesting to see, the brands that growing from scouting and up on the triangle, and hopefully some of them has a R&D center in Israel. And it's and to the next slide, we'll show just a couple of notable deals. Literally in the last year, all of this investment in the last year, and I think this is a great sign how growing is retail tech. So you will see big investment like Salesforce and Datorama, over $850 million, analytics companies. McDonald's just 2 months ago acquired Dynamic Yield, and they will present here at the summit. Walmart in Aspectiva, Alibaba just 2 months ago. So you will see all of the names just in the last year made a big investment in Israel. And if you look at this description, all of them e-commerce related companies. So they all want to be relevant at the e-commerce world. And I think this is one of the best signs how this retail tech and e-commerce is growing in Israel.
So I think up until now we have seen results, we have seen traction, we see how the interest from multinationals, how the appetite from VCs, and how the general approach and activity around the startup ecosystem is getting bigger and bigger on a yearly and monthly basis. And we've been dealing with the why. So why is it that retail technology is becoming such a big part of our ecosystem? And why is it that many of the companies, even if they don't have sales operation in Israel, so many of the brands mentioned in the recent slides, Tesco, Walmart, you name it, they don't have selling facilities in Israel. And yet again, they come here and try to find the right way to work with vendors in major innovation hubs. So I think it's important to understand the background to it, and obviously the industry is being reshaped. I'm going to argue that retail conceptually haven't changed in 8 decades. So the core value chain of retail and consumer packaged goods have not changed to the core in almost 100 years. And now we feel that gist of that core being challenged. It's being challenged by external forces, technology, and consumer motivations. It's been challenged by internal forces, new bidders and new players that try and reinvent the business model and the way we actually consume products and services. I think in the old days, right, when retail was being shaped, it was pretty obvious what do you need to control a market. I've done some work with Coca-Cola, with Nike, with the big retail and CPG brands, and all of them had that same notion in which to actually dominate an industrial field, here's what you need, right? You need the physical assets, the factory, the truck, the store, the people. Those are the ones that actually allow you to create dominance. You need to be self-contained in the sense that you do it all yourself. He who controls the product will control the market. So all of the companies I've mentioned are actually the product creator. And to get competitive advantages, all you need to create is scale advantages. And that's the way to create better margins, better go-to-market, better commercial terms. And that's the old economy, and we have seen that specifically around retail and manufacturing facilities. And now we see a completely different ballgame, right? Now, to be the most dominant player within a field, you need a new, like other assets and other capabilities. It's much more about the data and consumer engagement, because these are the places in which you actually create the premium and keep it. You need to create in a collaborative manner, because otherwise you would not be able to compete. So if I'm the best in the world in creating a product, branding it, and advertising it, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have the ability to take it all the way to the customer house, right? I need to collaborate with other external companies that will enable me to create an effective value chain. All of those dominant players are very customer-centric, and they have a lean and agile infrastructure, because that is the only way you can actually grow fast. So all of the traditional assets, and this is actually one of the hardest conversations I have with CEOs, is around that. Everything you've learned to assume is an asset, right? The physical warehouses and stores and trucks might be considered as a liability, because they limit your ability to grow fast. And in the end of this short deck, I'm going to argue that new technologies and new startups are actually helping corporate incumbent clients make those traditional assets beneficial again, make them as an advantage rather than a liability. So we'll get back to that in a minute. This is pretty straightforward. You've seen these slides probably quite a few times, but I think it's interesting to look at it from left to right and from top to bottom. So you see from left to right that exact change between the old economy and new economy. If you look at the players on the left side of the slide, Delta, Hilton, Avis, Yellow, Wells Fargo, Visa, these are all companies who used the old economy to create advantages, and they were very product focused. All of them are actually the product creator. It doesn't even matter if the product is a banking account, a flight, or a shirt, right? On the other hand, on the right side of the slide, you can see the new companies who control their own markets, and almost none of them are actually creators of the products. So you look at Booking and Airbnb and Uber and Mint and ASOS. So some of them actually became manufacturers and branders in a second phase, but they gained their power from that very sweet position in the front row to customers. Another thing that you should take a look at is top to bottom, because we started with industry that actually went through the change. They have been disrupted: travel, transportation, FS. And then you look down and you see other industries that are in the process of being reshaped and challenged these days. And obviously the one on the top are more service-oriented, and the one on the bottom are product-oriented, because there is a product to get from point A to point B. And we'll talk about the last mile as one of the barriers around CPG. So moving on to the next slide, hopefully. We'd like to look at that arena, the retail arena, and understand that it's actually a jungle with 4 very different types of animals, right? And you look at them and you need to understand that each of them have different strategic mindset, different approaches, and different ambitions towards the market, right? If you look at the elephants would be your classic manufacturers. So you can see Kraft and Levi's and Unilever and P&G and J&J and Coca-Cola. They are the ones that actually work out in a defensive mechanism, trying to keep their grounds. They try to do a lot of innovation, but the business rationale is actually stay a big part in the game, because they have all of the assets and everything to lose. They know that they need to adjust. They know that they need to change the way they do business. They know that they cannot be pushed to that back position of the value chain. They need to go forward. The next type of companies are the octopuses. The octopuses are the retailers. They hold the one asset that everybody are after. They hold the one asset that everybody try to make their own, and that's the customer. So hence the fact that if they hold the customer, all they need to do is send more and more arms to sort of strengthen their position. Such an arm could be a loyalty club, an e-commerce shop, apps, private label. So everything that will get a better grip over the customer or the end user. But once again, their rationale is to defend their position and to stand their ground. Then you have the bees. The bees are the startups, and they operate in that I'm assuming we have a lot of startup and entrepreneurs on the line. Startups have one mindset, and that's get rich or die trying to. That's the one thing you promise to your shareholders and investors. Either I'm going to change the world or I'm going to drop dead, just like a bee. Now, it's not like any startup will kill an elephant, but they can sting. And that could be troubling, and they could reshape the customer expectations and the way business is being created. And then the last type of player, and everybody is worried about them, and for a good reason, that will be the sharks. So the technology monsters coming outside of the jungle, trying to reshape it. You look at Amazon, you look at Google, you look at Ali, and all of them, they come with all of the money in the world. So they're like the amount of money they invest in R&D operations is incredible. All of the data in the world, the customer interaction, and the most frightening thing about it is they come with different business rationale. So many of them enter a specific industry, say, groceries, without the ambition to make money out of it. They do that to create advantages in their core industries. And that is a challenge that in many of the cases, it's kind of hard to fight against. And due to the fact that these sharks have the technology, the agility, all of the investment power in the world, we see more and more coalitions being created between the old school companies, so the elephant and the octopuses, and the bees. And I think there is a very good reason for that. And I think if you think about that from a strategic standpoint, the assets that the incumbent clients or the incumbent companies bring to the table are in very good fit to the one that startups actually have by definition. So if I'm a retailer or a manufacturer, what do I have to offer? I have the scale, I have the product, I have the access to market and data, I have the ability to tolerate, some experimentation, and I have a lot of industry expertise. That's the basic assets I bring to that wedding, right? On the other side, the bees, they bring the cutting edge technology because that's the reason they came to the world. They bring all of the agility and the ability to move fast, to pivot, to change the way they create value, to actually test things, and they bring the new business model. So the loyalty, the direct to consumer, the ability to create monetization of data, everything that is beyond the product and beyond the interaction. And that's why we see more and more, corporate clients desperately seeking the best of breed startups. And we see more and more startups understanding that in order for them to scale, they need to join forces with the infrastructure offered either by, classic retailers or them big brand manufacturers. Moving forward, we've created, so most of our work is actually being done with the global crown jewel clients of Deloitte in the world. So it could be the big retailers, groceries, consumer electronics, fashion, obviously, or the big brands and the big manufacturers. And they come to us early on when they understand that they don't have the ability to do that trial and error and scale of technology from within. And they need to boost innovation, but they need someone to help them to cut through the white noise, because it's very hard for them to understand, which technologies, which domains, which companies could actually move a needle in their own business environment. So one of the things we do with them, and that's the second time, we've done that a year and a half ago, we're going to publish the next landscape next month, is we do a lot of work in mapping and clustering innovation. Up until now, it was only in Israel. From the next couple of months, it will be in Silicon Valley and New York as well. We try to interact, meet, and evaluate the different startups and different technologies in order to understand not only the merits of the technology, but also the business value, because that is what our clients are asking us about. So our next mapping, we'll talk a lot about where do we identify pockets of innovation, either because we see a lot of startups there, or we see bigger and bigger ones, or we see the VC money being focused at either specific marketing moves or sales opportunities or automation around supply chain and distribution. Obviously, a lot of technologies are being involved in the checkout, both in terms of making that easy and convenient, and in terms of making that safer and create more sales based on the fact that you dismantle, that barrier of purchase. So a lot of the startups you identify are in these 8 main pockets of innovation. I guess, the group we have now on the line is more focused at, I would say, the consumer-facing activities. So is it marketing opportunities, and a lot of the startups we see now are focused at helping, classic marketing activity go from above the line, segmentized, large scale messages into that granular loyalty creating activity. So you can see companies like Dynamic Yield and like Optimove that try to help retailer tailor the offering, the channels, the value proposition to the exact need of a specific client based on data, based on people like him, based on past behavior. We see a lot of companies that want to create better sales funnels. So either help companies or clients find the exact products, or help companies sort of make their relationship with their target audiences more ongoing, more repeating purchases, more loyalty based. And obviously the entire safe and convenience of checkout is something that we've talked about, and it's becoming huge, especially for e-commerce and other digital interactions with consumers. You can see that all of these potential, technologies could help increase the existing customer interaction, increase the spend, but also minimize some of the cost you spend on reaching your customers, on tailoring the offering to them. We see a lot of work on creating not only a better online experience, but also connecting the different channels to ensure that we don't bleed customer potential in that journey, and make sure that we unify our funnels and our journey into a singular one in which we can control and actually maximize the value. And this is the last slide, and then I'm going to shut up and hopefully answer some of the questions or thoughts you guys have. I think it's important to understand, and we've mentioned, the customer journey. So we'd like to look at it as, if we'll take a page out of the design thinking book, we'd like to look at it as two separate journeys that it's, important to mitigate. Because if you look at the retailers and you look at the startups, even if they both understand the power of cooperation, and we've talked about that, I think companies have better and better understanding of the fact that they cannot rely on their core assets and their core capabilities. They need to reach out to other external entities that will complete the portfolio of assets, either bring the agility and quickness or bring the scale and access to market. So what we see in many of the cases that in the different stages of the journey, there are different reasons for that, mitigation to fail. So it starts with, the retailers understanding that innovation is obviously important because margins are becoming, at threat. But there is so much out there and so much hype around innovation, so much hype and buzzwords that I cannot even comprehend, that it's hard for me to find what might be right for me as a specific retailer or a specific manufacturer. I think it's the same for the startups. A lot of the startups we work with, they shoot at all directions, and, they try to have a good answer for every opportunity. They are not that focused around specific use case or specific business value. They say, I've built a pretty sweet technology, and now I'm going to try to spread it as much as possible. And I think more than any other companies, startup needs to be strategically focused around the business scenario, around the geographies, around the type of clients that might be of, more relevancy and might be, more of low-hanging fruits from their perspective. So I think a lot of the work we do early on in the funnel is actually help the corporate clients understand which strategic domain should they focus at. Where should be their focus in terms of looking at technologies and looking at vendors and finding more about the potential business creation and so on. And just in the same way, we can help startups, and we do that all the time, sort of focus, their promise and their offering and their quest. Later on, it's very hard for companies to understand how would, the best of breed technologies they have seen will translate into creating value in their own business environment. And this is actually the toughest part, finding ways to understand how an actual startup, could create a change for me. Many of the retailers have, I would call that innovation fatigue. They are sick and tired of meeting very nice individuals that promise them the world, and then, they cannot translate it into a project and into a process, and they cannot double down on each of the solutions. So a lot of the work we do over there is actually work with both parties, the corporate and the startup, to try and get a better understanding of what if. So what will happen if, that will be embedded? What will happen if that technology will be bundled into a suite and so on? And that involves, strategic planning, but also POCing the hell out of it and doing some very, short-term pilots and understanding how would that look like. And then the biggest worry any retailer I have worked with, the biggest concern they have about a startup is obviously, how quickly could they scale? So I found this nice company from Israel. They do camera-based, demographic or camera-based shelf monitoring or camera-based checkout, you name it. And we've done one branch in New Jersey, and it was fabulous, and the results are off the chart. And now I need to take that to 4,000 point of sales, right? To 4,000, branches. That's a nightmare, and that's a capex investment nobody could easily, decide on. So a lot of what we try to isolate is that path towards scalability, and how quickly could either a single point solution or a bundle of them could become part of the core operation of a startup or the core operation of a retailer or a brand, and how would that impact the business, and how would we make a process out of it? Because in many of the cases, it becomes a program and one that both sides should be working on. So I think that's basically all we had planned for the day. I think the one biggest takeaway I think you guys need to take into the account is if we started with the fact that many of the traditional assets of a retailer became sort of a liability, I think a lot of the startups we identify as most successful ones are actually the ones that make those very same assets big again, right? They create advantages based on the store in terms of the distribution. They create advantages based on the shelf in terms of market access and the ability to distribute products. They create advantage based on the customer and, sales force of the company. So they make a lot of the core assets that a retailer or a brand might have, they make them an advantage again, because that could be an advantage when you are competing with a straight up online only seller. And that is why that connection, that ability to join forces between corporate client and startup is super important. And we need to do that right. Otherwise, you kind of miss on very good opportunities to create better value together. Do we have any questions or any other things you want us to discuss?
Actually, I think, guys, that was actually a fantastic presentation. So much so it seems you've covered most of all the topics, and we don't have any questions here except for one person asking if they'll be able to have the slide deck at the end. So I'd like to thank both Ariel and Rami for a great presentation and for giving up of their time to share their insights with us. I'm sure everybody, like myself, appreciated it. I'd like to thank you all for joining the first webinar of our e-commerce innovation summit. We have a lot of exciting sessions yet to come. Don't miss our next session today, starting on the hour, 12 p.m. Eastern time, titled The Do's and Don'ts of Working with Startups. based on over 200 interactions between retailers and startups, and this will be presented by RETEC. Again, just to reiterate, we will be communicating with everybody who registered for the webinar series at the end of the week, and you will be provided with a link to access all the on-demand sessions. Of course, if there's any questions that you wished you had asked during a session, feel free to write to us. We'll be happy to connect with you afterwards. So again, guys, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day. Bye now.
Thanks.
Thank you.